Welcome back. We find ourselves this morning in Wausau, Florida, at the Washington County Emergency Operations Center. Here now with Lynne Abel, Public Safety Director for Washington County. Lynne, not so long in this position, a longtime employee in this office, obviously, under another administration. But how long actually have you been in the position now of director?
Right at 3 months.
And so far we've found ourselves in at least 2 states of emergency, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Obviously, right now, just trying to clean up from the vestiges of probably some of the worst flooding that we've seen in 40 or 50 years in this part of Florida.
Yes, sir.
We met recently with Tommy Barfield, District Secretary with the Department of Transportation. He said that Washington County has been particularly bad hit compared to the surrounding counties.
Yes, sir.
We've pointed out in our program that which we tout as one of our greatest natural resources, which is lots of water, can sometimes bite us in the tail end under these conditions. Let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
We started, 5-6 weeks ago with this rain event and the subsequent state of emergency. Talking just in broad details about how that whole thing came about.
Okay, well, we began to receive rain the week of July the 2nd, around that time. Rains began to fall, and the Weather Service honestly was not prepared, nor were we, for the type of rain that was going to set up. We knew that there might be some flash flooding, but in watching the radar on July 3rd, we noticed that there were heavy rain bands that sat right up on Washington County and did not move. And we knew fairly quickly into it that we were receiving a lot of rain, and immediately the board met and declared a local state of emergency because we were already, in just a few hours into it, receiving calls that there were problems on roads.
So this was July 3rd.
Yes, sir.
Preparatory to the big celebration of July 4th.
Absolutely.
So we're going into a national holiday, even though it wasn't on a weekend.
Right.
Lots of people in vacation mode.
Yes.
So you're having to mobilize all of a sudden.
Yes.
Yes. Excuse me for interrupting, but
that's okay.
I think that brings another sort of element into that equation.
It does. We actually had lots of folks on vacation and that sort of thing. So immediately our public works supervisor, Dallas Carter, began to call his men in, and they began to respond to the event. We had the city of Vernon that was adversely impacted immediately.
Now that's Holmes Creek because of Holmes Creek specifically?
Yes, Holmes Creek.
Yeah.
And, well, just the rain that was falling. There were just such large amounts of rain falling so quickly. And again, we had not prepared for this type of rain because it was just really a fluke that it sat up like it did and just stayed. It was stationary for so long. And then the rains continued into July the 4th. We had volunteer fire departments from all over the county responding to Vernon to assist with traffic control because on Highway 79 there, of course, people were going down to the beach, and that is an evacuation route, and that state road was impacted by water. And, of course, other areas. Quickly, low-lying areas were impacted. Our roads were impacted. We had some severe damage to roads. So typically a local state of emergency is in effect for 7 days unless it's extended. And so we did extend the local state of emergency. The rains just continued to fall, not to the degree and magnitude that they did initially, but they continued to fall. Roads would not dry out. And the important thing to the Public Works Department was to try to get the roads in shape for school that was about to start. They were scheduled to start on August the 19th, and so their primary concern was to get the roads passable for school buses as best that they could. Then, of course, on August 16th, I believe, we began to once again have some flash flooding to kind of set up over us, and that continued through the weekend. And so once again, on August 18th, we declared a local state of emergency. And with the continued rain that we had and the initial heavy rain that came on July the 2nd, we had just all the work that had been done by Public Works, which was limited because of the continued rain. it was just washed away, basically.
And then exacerbated by people on vacation, so we probably had
Absolutely.
diminished staff in addition. Did you have an all-hands-on-deck call out?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. In fact, our Public Works Department has worked since July 3rd, just almost around the clock. They've taken Sundays off, but they've worked very, very hard. We have had, impacts to different departments that were involved. Now, our concern, of course, we were declared, we got a federal declaration for the dates July 2nd through the 7th. With the continued rainfall, and we do have documentation from the Weather Service that we have received an enormous amount of rainfall. Typically for Washington County, we receive 53 to 56 inches annually. We have areas in the county that have documented proof by the Weather Service that they've received about 48 inches in 6 weeks. So obviously it's a very extreme situation and very dangerous. Roads were impacted, both paved and unpaved, but most certainly the unpaved roads. We had culverts exposed and just huge washouts. We had people trapped in areas that could not get out of their homes, and that was top of the list priority. We had to get them accessible to our emergency services. They needed to be able to get to them if the situation should arise. So then, of course, a concern to our office was the continuous calls we received from individuals, property owners that had damage to their homes. Again, that first little impact that we got, as that first rain came, we realized that there were homes that were being impacted, roof damage, leaking, wall damage, that kind of thing. So we had some state teams come in and do some evaluations, and based on FEMA's criteria, our any damage that was received was not enough for individual assistance, federal assistance, and of course those decisions are made on the federal level. So what we did, our concern was the locals, and we asked some nonprofit groups to meet with us, and some made contact with us as well. And on July 18th, I believe, we set up our first meeting and had some discussions with several organizations and began to form a long-term recovery organization that could have some assistance come in. A group called Hammers and Hearts has done a lot of work out in Joplin and different places, and they came in. They're here now, and they are working with Catholic Charities, the West Florida Baptist Association, UMCOR, different groups. The Red Cross has been involved some, Salvation Army, some local churches, just different nonprofit organizations. And although there was no federal monies available, churches, the larger churches, have some grant monies that they can offer. And so we did apply for those, and those grant monies, those small, are beginning to come in, and we have requested some meetings and been involved in some meetings to establish a fiscal agent to kind of oversee the financial side of this, and we're...
Because I would imagine that any time you have this kind of an operation, if you don't have oversight, you're opening yourself up to all kinds of criticism.
Absolutely, and we want it done correctly. Now, we do have Catholic charity assessment teams coming in. In fact, today we expect some case managers to come in and begin to contact some of the individuals that are on our list, which is ever growing. We have over 100 homes that have reported damage to us, homeowners. And there's some criteria that they have to meet. It is required that the homes that are worked on are privately owned, not rental properties, and the owner lives in the home. there's some insurance questions, some income questions, that sort of thing that will be asked. And if they meet the criteria of Catholic Charities, then Hammers and Hearts will go out and do an assessment and determine what needs to be done. Now, their work is volunteer, but of course the materials are not free, and so that's what the money will be going to. Housing, feeding, and the work of the volunteers is all being donated through different means. And so it's a wonderful opportunity, we believe, to assist those that have been adversely impacted on an individual level. Of course, the public assistance dollars that will be coming back will be beneficial to our locals because it affects the roads and that sort of thing. But we're just looking we're looking forward to working with these groups and getting them on the ground. And I think those that can receive the assistance will be well pleased with the program that we're trying to set up here.
And not to editorialize, but I think that part of the reason we find ourselves in the fiscal heartburn that we do on a national level is that there has been too much of a demand and a response from state and local governments in many cases where it should be neighbors helping neighbors.
Absolutely.
And this seems to embrace that philosophy.
Absolutely.
If somebody feels that they're maybe in a situation where they could receive some of this aid, how would they go about finding more information?
Okay, they can contact our office, and that number is 850-638-6203. And we're here from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we've actually begun to create the lists that they'll be using to do their case management and assessments.
When we think of disasters, we think of Joplin, Missouri tornado. We think of Hurricane Sandy in the Northeast. Yes. But sometimes just a lot of rain is enough to affect people to that same extreme level. We've had some highway flooding. We've had some of the local state highways closed, noticeably south of I-10 there at Blue Lake. That area has dried out as far as the road is concerned. They are still pumping a lot of water, 5,000 gallons a minute at last report. And they have to hold back traffic so that the road doesn't deteriorate because of that substrate under the asphalt being saturated.
Right.
So Tommy Barfield, District Secretary, catching a lot of heat for that. Obviously, their whole crew. They also working 12-hour shifts.
Yes.
A lot of overtime. Your people being called in, working, you say, 6 days a week. At the end of all of this, very expensive endeavor.
Yes.
In a county such as Washington, where we already have fiscal opportunities for heartburn, at some point there's going to be a bill to be paid.
Yes.
And obviously nobody wants taxes raised, but nobody anticipates these kind of natural disasters. Has there been, to your knowledge, discussion with the county commission about emergency funding or some opportunity to come up with some kind of funding? Because at this point, as far as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, there has not been any federal or state aid as far as actual monies is concerned. Okay,
we have been approved for reimbursement assistance for public assistance on the roadways, and we do actually have FEMA and state teams now doing the assessments. Now, our concern is that the rain continued, and we had some additional impacts to the initial impact through the weekend of August 16th, 17th. So we have requested, and it is my understanding that the state and feds are looking at the possibility of an extension of the time frame that they're looking at. Currently, the way the grant or the declaration is set up, any rain or damage that was received after July 7th is not covered.
Hence the desire for an extension.
Exactly. And, of course, Highway 77 was not closed until that weekend. And so we do have some concerns, but we are trying to address those with our state and federal counterparts.